My name is Chloe Whitmore. I'm 32 years old. I live in a small house just outside New Haven, Connecticut, with a rescue dog named Finch and far too many half-finished manuscripts saved in folders I haven't opened in months. I'm a writer freelance, mostly ghostwriting and editing these days. It's not glamorous, and certainly not the kind of career that earns you praise at family dinners. But it's mine, quiet, independent, unremarkable to most people, and I've made peace with that. Or at least, I thought I had. I come from a family where appearances matter more than truths, where wealth is worshipped, and silence is the cost of peace. My father, Richard Whitmore, was a powerful man in New York venture capital circles, ruthless, sharp-eyed, respected, sometimes feared. He built an empire worth over $50 million before his unexpected stroke in 2019. My mother, Elaine, comes from old Boston money, the kind that doesn't talk about therapy or feelings, just stocks and the next charity gala. She mastered the art of being the perfect host, the perfect wife, and the perfectly disappointed mother. Then there's Derek, my older brother. If you looked up Golden Child in a family photo album, his face would be there, flashing that rehearsed, camera-ready smile. He's 4 years older than me, louder, more charming, always at the center of attention. He runs or claims to run a boutique real estate firm in Miami, filled with luxury listings, beautiful women, and what he calls high net worth opportunities. That's code for flashy, unsustainable deals, debt dressed in Gucci. Growing up, Derek was the sun our parents orbited around. When he got into Stanford, they bought him a Rolex. When I got into NYU with a full scholarship, my mother nodded and said, "That's nice, dear." I was always the quiet one, the bookish girl who didn't make waves. My father once called me low maintenance. At the time, I took it as a compliment. Now I see it for what it was. I didn't demand enough to be noticed. After Dad passed, everything changed, though not in the way people expected. He left behind a complicated estate, with assets locked in trusts, clauses buried in legal jargon, and a letter addressed only to me. In it, he wrote, "You saw through the noise. You never asked, but you listened. That's why this is yours." He left me $18 million. Not because I was his favorite, not because we had some secret bond, but because, as he wrote in that final note, "You're the only one I trust to carry this without burning it all down." I didn't tell anyone about the full amount at first. They knew I received a portion. What they assumed was that I got lucky, that Dad gave me a consolation prize out of guilt or sentiment. They didn't imagine he'd bypass Derek almost entirely. They couldn't fathom a world where I, Chloe the Invisible, would be the one holding the keys. But they found out, eventually. They always do. And the moment they did, something in them shifted. The way they looked at me, the sudden invitations, the sugary smiles, as if they were trying to remember how to love me, but only after they realized I was valuable. It's funny how money doesn't just change people, it reveals them. And as I'd soon find out, the people closest to you are often the ones who think they deserve what's yours simply because they share your blood. It happened on the night I should have known better. Derek's wedding was a grand affair held at the Rosemore Estate, a sprawling $12,000 Thunder night venue nestled in the Hudson Valley, with crystal chandeliers hanging like frozen rain and a guest list 300 names long. There were violinists at cocktail hour, personalized silk napkins, and a 12-tier cake that cost more than most people's annual rent. Everything screamed excess. Derek loved a stage, and this was the performance of his life. I didn't even receive a formal invitation, just a forwarded evite from my cousin Emily with a half-hearted "figured you'd want to see this." I assumed it was a mistake, until I realized my name wasn't printed on the guest list at the check-in table. I had to explain who I was twice. The coordinator squinted at me, then radioed someone over her shoulder, whispering into her mic like I was a security risk. Eventually, I was escorted to a table near the back, Behind a column that blocked most of the ballroom, my name card read Chloe, with a Y. No one corrected it. The bride, Marissa, barely acknowledged me. When I tried to compliment her dress during cocktail hour, she gave me a sharp smile and said, "Oh, I didn't realize you made it. I thought you weren't coming." Then she turned to her friend and added, under her breath, but just loud enough, "She's the weird one who lives with a dog, right?" It stung, not because I cared what she thought of me, but because no one in my family corrected her. My mother, standing just a few feet away, sipped her champagne and pretended she didn't hear a thing. I stayed quiet during dinner, picking at overpriced foie gras I didn't want. Around dessert, Derek finally came over, his tie loosened, drunk on whiskey and attention. "You made it," he said, slapping my shoulder like a frat brother. "Did you bring a gift?" "I wired 10,000 last week," I said, "per your registry instructions." He grinned. "Ah, yes, the honeymoon fund. Marissa and I are thinking Maldives, or maybe a yacht in Sardinia. Depends on how generous people feel." I should have left right then, but I stayed. Later in the evening, after the toasts and the slow dance and the fireworks, yes, actual fireworks, I slipped away to find the bathroom. I took a wrong turn down a hallway and paused outside a door cracked just an inch open. I didn't mean to eavesdrop, but I heard my name, and I froze. "She hasn't noticed yet." That was Derek's voice. "No, she's too naive for her own good," my mother said. "She thought she was signing a tax document. You worded it perfectly." My stomach dropped. 4.5 is a drop in the bucket. Derek replied, "We'll move more once she trusts us again. The shell company's set up. It's clean." "Just remember," Mom added, "it's not stealing if she's family." I didn't breathe for a full minute. My hand clutched the bathroom door handle like it might anchor me to the ground. My ears rang. My skin buzzed. I wanted to scream, or burst in, or break something, but I did none of that. I waited until they left the room. Then I locked myself in the bathroom and sat on the edge of the tub, staring at the marble floor tiles, counting each breath. My thoughts spiraled. The form I signed 3 months ago, Dad's old accountant had mailed it to me, saying something about tax restructuring. I'd trusted them. I didn't read it fully. They'd taken $4, $5 million. I opened my banking app, hands shaking. The trust account showed a pending investment transfer. I tapped the details. The receiving entity, Whitmore Holdings LLC. I'd never heard of it. That night, I didn't say goodbye. I left before the bouquet toss, walked out into the cold air, heels in hand, and drove back to my empty house. They threw $1 million wedding and paid for it with my money. I don't remember the walk back to my car. I remember the cold and the way my skin prickled even beneath my shawl. I remember the taste of champagne gone sour in my throat, but the rest was a blur, my heels clicking against the flagstone, the sound of the band inside swelling to something grotesquely cheerful, like background noise in a horror film. I sat in the driver's seat for 15 minutes without starting the engine, just sitting there, shaking. I stared at the bouquet of peonies in the back seat, the one I had brought as a symbolic gesture, something simple and pretty for their big day. I had wrapped it myself, even tied a ribbon. I wanted them to know I cared. Even if I didn't say much, it felt so naive now, so laughably earnest. They took my money, $4.5 million, and they planned it, orchestrated it like a con, using the illusion of family to blind me. Worse than the theft was the betrayal, the realization that my mother and my brother, the two people I'd worked so hard to protect and support in my own quiet way, had treated my trust like a weakness. My phone buzzed with a notification, Marissa tagging me in a wedding group photo on Instagram. I was standing off to the side, half hidden behind a floral arch, smiling with my mouth but not my eyes. The caption read, "So lucky to marry into a family full of love and support." I started the engine and drove in silence. The highway was empty at that hour, and the darkness stretched like a tunnel, giving me too much time to think. I thought of my father. It had been a cold October morning when we last spoke. Only a month before his stroke, we were sitting in his study, the one room he didn't let anyone else clean. He had a fire going and a thick blanket draped across his lap. I remember the smell of the wood smoke and his cologne, and how thin he looked in the morning light. He'd reached over and taken my hand. Money makes people worse. He had said, "Protect yourself, even from us." At the time, I'd smiled and rolled my eyes. I thought it was just another one of his dramatic philosophies. Another line meant to sound wise. I didn't realize he wasn't being clever. He was warning me. Back in my house that night, I poured myself a glass of wine I didn't drink and sat at the kitchen counter with my laptop. I started going through everything. Emails from Derek's accountant. A message from my mother with that damn document, "Sign this when you get a chance." It's just some boring estate cleanup stuff. The file was still in my inbox. PDF attached. I opened it. It wasn't a tax form. It was a limited power of attorney, narrowly tailored, expertly worded, just enough access for them to move funds from my secondary trust account into what they labeled an interim investment partnership. Bull. Whitmore Holdings LLC. I Googled it. No website, no listing, but a public filing under the Florida Division of Corporations. Registered Agent Derek Whitmore. My chest tightened. I felt the tears before I noticed them, hot and bitter down my cheeks. I wasn't crying over the money. Not really. I was crying because I'd let them in. I'd defended them to others. I had bought birthday gifts, sent money for medical bills, helped fund Derek's startups, paid off Mom's credit cards when she pretended not to understand online banking. And this was what they gave me in return. A setup, a fake birthday celebration, a smile with a knife behind it. The next morning, I didn't shower, I didn't brush my hair, I wrapped myself in a robe, sat on the edge of my bed, and called Mr. Actor Dobbins, my father's former attorney. His voice was raspy and precise. He was one of the few people I trusted, because my father had trusted him without question. "I need your help," I said, skipping the pleasantries. They moved money, $4.5 million, through a shell company. I have the document. I want to freeze all disbursements immediately, and I want to press charges if they touched anything else. He didn't gasp or react. He just asked for details, quietly, calmly. "I'll send the papers over today," he said. "We'll act quickly." After we hung up, I sat for a long time, staring at my reflection in the closet mirror. My hair was a mess. My face was pale. But my eyes, they looked different. Not hurt, not sad. Tired. And then the memories came back. Christmas 2015. I gave Derek a check for $10,000 to help cover a business loan he said was crushing him. He never paid me back. Mother's 60th birthday. I bought her a diamond bracelet she'd once admired in a magazine. She gave me a re-gifted candle and said, "You've always been so practical." When I landed my first real writing contract, ghostwriting a memoir for a Wall Street executive, no one asked about it. Derek sent me a meme freelance means unemployed with a laptop. I laughed at the time. I didn't anymore. All those moments I minimized, dismissed, explained away. I had mistaken silence for strength. But silence was how they got away with it. In that moment, sitting cross-legged on my bed in a house that finally felt like mine, I made a decision. I would not go to war with them, not yet. But I would no longer protect them from consequences. Not even if they were family. It started on a Tuesday morning. I was halfway through a lukewarm cup of coffee and editing a memoir for a client in Denver who thought every sentence needed a footnote. My phone buzzed with a New York number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't pick up. I'm glad I did. Miss Whitmore. The voice was crisp, efficient. "This is Lydia Frank with the Financial Herald." I was wondering if you'd like to comment on the allegations against your brother and the leaked transactions linked to Whitmore Holdings LLC. I blinked, heart suddenly sprinting. I'm sorry. What allegations? You haven't seen the story. She didn't need to explain. I typed Derek's name into Google, and there it was, top of the page, a breaking news headline, complete with a picture of Derek in his wedding tuxedo. Real estate investor accused of embezzling millions through family trust, shell companies and offshore transfers under investigation. I clicked the article. The write-up was detailed, brutal. It laid out a paper trail linking Whitmore Holdings LLC to a series of suspicious wire transfers. The figure $5 million was mentioned specifically, as was my name. Buried in a paragraph, funds were allegedly misappropriated from a trust belonging to Chloe Whitmore, the younger sister of the accused. They didn't know the full story, but they knew enough. I hung up on Lydia Frank without another word. My hands were shaking again, but not from fear this time. It was adrenaline, relief. It had worked. What no one knew, what no one could have guessed, was that I had been waiting for this. 4 months earlier, after sensing something wasn't right with Derek's constant investment opportunities, I'd consulted with Mr. Dobbins. I told him I suspected my family might try something reckless. I wasn't paranoid. I was prepared. We created a decoy trust account, labeled it CW Growth Reserve. We moved a phantom amount, exactly $4, $500, $1,000 into it from my main holdings. On paper, it looked real. To anyone snooping through my digital files, it would seem like an untouched pot of gold, a perfect target. Then we set a digital trap. I signed a limited power of attorney that appeared to give access to that account, crafted so carefully it could be legally contested if necessary. It included unique watermarked signatures and time-stamped access tracking. The moment someone used it, we'd know. And they did. Within a week. Derek moved the money. My mother co-signed. They funneled it into a company Derek registered in Florida under a shell alias tied to his other real estate ventures. But there was no actual money. Just signatures. Just evidence. After the news broke, my phone erupted. Cousin Mark called. Twice. Aunt Susan left me a voice message. Frantic. Honey, we had no idea. If we'd known... Oh God, what can we do? And then my mother, standing outside my house the next day. She wore pearls, always pearls, even when pretending to cry. Her voice trembled as I opened the door. Chloe, please, we need to talk. I didn't move. I didn't open the screen door. I just stared at her, waiting. Tears slid down her cheeks. Real, maybe, or rehearsed. I didn't know Derek would go that far. I thought he was just borrowing. You know how he is. Desperate, I said quietly. She flinched. Charming. He's always been charming. You helped him sign legal documents to move money from your daughter's trust fund. I said, that's not charming. That's fraud. It was supposed to be temporary. Her voice cracked. We were going to put it back. We thought you'd understand. You've always had so much... Chloe? I laughed then, softly, bitterly. You mean... I earned something you thought should belong to someone louder. She reached through the screen door. Please. We're family. And what does that mean to you? I asked. Because to me, it means protection, loyalty, love, none of which you've shown me. She stepped back like I'd slapped her. I never wanted it to go public, she whispered. Neither did I. But you made choices. Now we both get to live with the consequences. The same day, Derek called me 5 times, then sent a voice message. Chloe, you win. Okay, I messed up. I'm sorry. Just don't let this ruin me. I have clients, investors. Marissa is talking about separation. Just, can we talk? Please? Off the record. I listened once, then deleted it. For the first time, they needed me. For the first time, they saw me. Not as a placeholder, not as the invisible girl in the back of the room, but as someone with power, with consequences. 3 days later, I agreed to attend a family meeting. Aunt Susan hosted it at her house in Stamford Neutral Ground. It was meant to be private, a healing conversation. But the moment I walked in, everyone turned to me like I was holding a detonator. My mother sat stiffly at one end of the table, clutching a handkerchief like it was a lifeline. Derek looked tired, hollowed out. Marissa wasn't there. Aunt Susan cleared her throat. We want to understand. Chloe, why you set this up? I met her eyes. You mean, why I protected myself? A silence. I didn't steal anything. I said, I gave you a rope. You tied the noose. You tricked us, Derek muttered. No, I tested you. My voice didn't shake. I made sure of that. I grew up being told I was the quiet one, the one who didn't need much. And maybe that was true. But I watched. I remembered. I gave and never asked for anything back. So when Dad told me to protect myself even from you, I finally listened. Derek stood. You're not better than us. I never claimed to be. I said, but I am done pretending I don't see what you are. My mother reached for me. Please don't let this tear us apart. It didn't. I said, you did. And then I left, without drama, without raising my voice, just walked out, past their stunned silence, into the clear afternoon. I never wanted revenge. What I wanted was truth. What I needed was proof. And now I had both. The headlines would fade. The money didn't matter. What mattered was that I stopped apologizing for being cautious, for being quiet, for seeing things as they were. They saw me now. Maybe, for the first time, they finally saw me. I arrived at the villa just after noon. The same place they threw my fake birthday party. The same place where, just weeks earlier, they smiled and posed for pictures while plotting behind my back. Now, the house felt different. The warmth was gone. The laughter silenced. The curtains drawn against the bright April sun. I parked my car beneath the same arbor I had stood under during that staged celebration. This time, no one greeted me with champagne. No cousins trying to be charming. No Derek waiting with that smug half-hug. Just silence. Inside, the air was thick with tension. My mother was already seated at the long dining table. Flanked by Derek and Aunt Susan, there were others. 2 faces from the family. People who had always stayed neutral when it mattered most. I nodded briefly. No smiles. No pleasantries. I dropped a black folder onto the table. The sound echoed. Everything's in there, I said, my voice steady. The fake trust, the signed power of attorney, email threads, bank trails, screenshots, audio. Derek shifted in his seat, eyes narrowing. You set us up. No, I replied. You walked right into it. I just watched. My mother clutched her pearls, her go-to shield for guilt. We were desperate. Chloe? No, I said sharply. Don't use that word like it makes this okay. Desperation isn't a free pass to betrayal. I opened the folder and slid the documents toward them. These are official notices. I continued. The power of attorney has been formally revoked. The estate administrator has been informed. Any access you had to my finances is now permanently closed. And these I pulled out 2 more envelopes. Placing them carefully before Derek and my mother are legal notifications. I've filed for financial restraining orders. If you attempt to engage in any transactions under my name, or involving my accounts, you will face criminal charges. My mother's mouth fell open. You're really doing this to your own family. You already did this to me. Aunt Susan tried to interject, voice trembling. Surely. Chloe, there must be a way to move forward. There is, I cut in, but not the way it was. I looked directly at Derek. You've stolen from me, lied to me, mocked me. You treated my inheritance as your emergency fund. You used my name and thought I wouldn't notice. He looked down at the documents. Jaw tight. He said nothing. I turned to my mother next. You stood by him. Worse, you helped. You called me naive for trusting you. I used to think maybe you just didn't see me. Now I know you did. You just didn't think I mattered. She flinched. Chloe, she whispered, eyes glassy. You've always been distant. We didn't know how to reach you. That's because you never tried, I replied. You only reached for me when you needed something. I stood straighter, grounding myself. I'm not here for revenge. I'm not even here for an apology. I'm here to make something clear. I took a breath. I'm no longer your safety net. I won't be your silent supporter. I won't pretend everything's okay at Thanksgiving. I'm not your backup plan. You taught me that love has conditions. Now I'm teaching you what boundaries look like. Silence fell like a curtain. Aunt Susan looked down. One of the cousins excused himself and left the room. No one stopped him. Derek leaned back, arms crossed, trying to maintain some version of control. You know this won't look good. It's already in the press. What happens when people start digging deeper? I hope they do, I said. He blinked. Because unlike you, I have nothing to hide. I gathered my papers, placed them back into the folder, and slid the final document across the table. Here's a summary of what's left in the trust. I've restructured everything. Even if you tried again, you couldn't touch a cent. I made sure of that. My mother spoke again, voice thin. And what about us? Chloe, what are we now? I looked at her for a long moment. You're people I used to trust. As I left the villa, the air outside felt clearer. I walked slowly, the way someone walks after being set free. I didn't feel triumphant. I wasn't gloating. I felt still. There were no fireworks, no loud declarations, just boundaries being set, finally. And for once in my life, they were going to have to live with them. I live on the Oregon coast now, in a small town with foggy mornings and wild cliffs where the ocean doesn't apologize for how loud it gets. I rent a weathered cottage with white shutters and a porch that smells like cedar when it rains. There's a fireplace I actually use, and a neighbor who bakes me sourdough every Sunday. No one here knows my last name. No one asks what happened back east. I've stopped posting online. No updates, no vacation photos, no birthday parties. Silence has become my sanctuary. It's strange how, once you stop explaining yourself to people who never truly listened, the world gets quieter but also more honest. I spend most of my days writing, not about them, not directly, but in the margins of every story. There are fragments, betrayals that echo, sisters who go unseen, women who learn that survival sometimes means disappearing. I write about grief, about rebuilding, about the strength it takes not to scream but to walk away. Once a year, I return to Connecticut. I bring a single flower to my father's grave. I don't speak. I don't cry. I just stand there, letting the stillness stretch between us. There's no need for words. He knew, somehow. I think he always did. The family still exists. Somewhere. I hear things. Derek is under investigation. The real estate firm dissolved. Marissa left him. My mother sold the big house and moved in with Aunt Susan. No one reaches out anymore, not even on holidays. I've stopped expecting them to. I've stopped needing them to. And that letting go of the need to be seen, to be understood, to be loved in the way they never could has been the real healing. They threw me a party to steal what was mine. But I walked away with something they'll never touch. Peace. Not the kind you shout about, not the kind that comes with vindication or press headlines, Just the quiet peace of knowing I chose myself, that I no longer live with one foot in a world that kept trying to shrink me. People often ask me if I've forgiven them. It's a question I still don't have a clean answer for. Forgiveness, I've come to learn, isn't always a gift you give to others. Sometimes it's a permission slip you write for yourself to stop carrying the weight of their choices. I don't wish them harm. I don't wish them well, either. I simply wish them elsewhere, out of my head, out of my story. I think there's power in that, in letting the chapter close without slamming the book. We grow up believing that family is everything, that we should endure, excuse, explain, bend because blood is thicker than boundaries. But what happens when the people you love most are the very ones who harm you the deepest? What do you do when staying loyal requires you to betray yourself? I had to ask myself those questions over and over again, in therapy, in the middle of sleepless nights, in the silence of my new life. And maybe now it's your turn. Have you ever had to choose between protecting your peace and keeping the ones you love close? How do you know when it's time to walk away, even from family? Your answer might look different from mine. That's okay. But whatever it is, I hope you find the courage to choose yourself. Because sometimes, the most radical thing you can do is stop asking others to see your worth and start living like you already know it.